working, because sometimes we do have some technical issues, but I hope as soon as the Zoom will connect with the YouTube, it will give me some kind of notification. And we are online, I think. Yes, I think we are working. Perfect. So Niki, yeah, thank you very much for coming and for, that you agreed to participate in our Let's Talk It Through show, I would say. And you will be, I'm really grateful, because you will be my guinea pig, for this time, because it's the first time I'm talking not with a coach, not with the professional from my field, and it's quite exciting. And thank you for coming.
Okay. Hope
Yeah.
hope it works.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we are experimenting. That's why I call in my mind you a guinea pig, because we are trying to find the format and try to reach kind of as many people as possible, talking about real issues. And in our last conversation, do you remember our vodka party?
Yeah.
My wife's party. So you intrigued me. You mentioned, you mentioned the topic which never really crossed my mind, that some people are in denial, some people are trying to ignore what is going on, and I got extremely curious, because I would like really to get your insights and your opinion, how you actually discovered that you are, or maybe some other people are, in denial. How you figure it out, or how it manifests itself?
Okay, so my experience was coming from a place that the lockdown kind of just, I'm not a person who like naturally has been like a person who really understands depression very well, but I have been in some kind of stress related depression just prior to lockdown. It's been a very kind of long process to realize that I actually was suffering from depression in some form. But the lockdown was really a moment when I realized all of these things, like suddenly being at home, having to juggle the responsibility of childcare and homeschooling and still working, having the responsibility of running a company, the huge stress factors. Plus, I'm a very social person. So isolation, not being social, being stuck in your house is also like a kind of loneliness factor. And I think like these type of scenarios really put me into some depression, where I would feel like I couldn't cope and I didn't want to get out of bed, like really quite heavy symptoms at some point. And then I would be on some groups, for example, with other parents or speaking to people. And I realized that everybody was just trying to, like, everything was okay, kind of, but I just knew two things. One was that my own self, I was suffering and I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know who to talk to. I'm not a person that people recognize probably as being a down person. I'm always very up. So like, I don't know if that's my own personal thought about myself that makes it hard for me to kind of reach out. But I realized that thing, and there's a lot of stigma around reaching out. And I really thought, well, other people must be suffering this. So either just in denial. Also, there is a real fact that I realized that people, when you are maybe suffering from depression, or first getting, if you're not a person that has suffered from it, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know that you're depressed? How do you know these symptoms that you are not used to? And if you do feel them, then how do you voice that? And so I guess all of these things came together with me not feeling I had a voice, somewhere to turn to, and realizing that this had to be going on, even though nobody was saying it, admitting it. And it just really made me start thinking about this whole stigma about depression, that people can't admit it, or do they even know they have it? That was the interesting point for me to get to that realization.
Well, that's exactly what fascinated me, because recently I tried to find the photo, your photo for our, like a for banner for this talk. And on all your photos in the Facebook, you are laughing, you are totally outgoing kind of type of personality, and you have lots of friends. I know you are socially extremely active, so you are not, in my mind, you are not the person which can be associated with any kind of depression or any kind of troubles, and that's why I find it quite yeah, revealing and interesting that you are talking about that. You have a well, you're bold enough actually to bring it up and really openly talk about that. Yeah, I have troubles, and I recognize that I do have. And you are wearing lots of hats. You are, I don't know, wife, mother. You are business owner. You have lots of things and responsibilities. So how exactly you recognize that there are signs of depression? I mean, is there any particular things which would like immediately
Mm,
get you realize that?
yes, my depression started actually from stress related. I think I reached like a burnout level from just juggling too many things, too many
Too many.
responsibilities, a lot of work, not enough time for myself. And for me, I feel like this stress then manifested itself into depression. So it's kind of weird. It started, I feel, as one thing. And then gradually, I lost interest in things that I used to enjoy. For
Yeah.
example, I used to do marimba classes and music, and within the stress and everything else, I just couldn't find my motivation to do it. So
Yeah.
I'd say lack of motivation would be a main, for me, one of the main signs of that crossover from stress. Because even when I was stressed, I would still find the outlet in the things that I loved creatively, for
Yeah.
example. But when I crossed into depression, I couldn't do that anymore. Um, not sleeping at night, I think, or having really weird sleep patterns, wanting to sleep all day, not having energy, I think is really could be part of my depression. At some
Hmm.
points during the early part of the lockdown, I had days where I couldn't get up really. It was very difficult for me because not really a person who has those, that type of
That kind of, yeah, symptoms.
um,
Well,
and
mhm.
yeah, so I'd say like for me, it would be like the really about losing interest in things that are actually good for me, not having any energy, not being able to concentrate properly.
Hmm. Hmm.
General
Yeah.
like sadness and like that, but mainly those things. Like I just lost interest, loss of appetite, those
Yeah.
typical things.
You are action oriented person, and when that particular essential trait of yours, somehow you are not acting because you are not interested anymore, you lost motivation and you have no, I would say it sounds to me that the root is lack of energy, because motivation is in some ways it's like a, when you have energy over the roof, it manifests itself in lots of activities, and then when you are suddenly not active and have no motivation, it means that, yeah, somehow you depleted your energy to zero, and that's it. Okay, that's a sign for you.
Mm.
And what do you think when you talked with other people? What are the patterns you were able to see? How other people are reacting, or maybe in denial? Have you get any response? Did you discuss that topic with some of your friends?
I think with people who are close enough to you and who have suffered from depression themselves, once
Hmm.
you say it, they will admit it, and you can have a good dialogue.
Yeah.
I think there's opening a door in a way, which is one of the things that I really thought about when I thought about the stigma of this thing, because we're not very educated about it generally. And then suddenly, if you have it, you realize that the world isn't educated, so you don't know how to say, hi, excuse me, I'm depressed or whatever. But I realized that other people aren't admitting it, because when you admit it to them or talk about your depression, then they would open up and say, oh yeah, me too. I have these mental health issues or whatever. But I think it's a very closed topic in a way. And the reason that I'm happy to talk about it is because I think it shouldn't be a closed topic, and we need to, my general state of mental health throughout my life has been very good. But now that it isn't, or hasn't been recently, I've really see how much people could be suffering, especially people who have long-term symptoms. So I think it's important that we do talk about it. That there are platforms like you talking now with me that we can actually discuss, what we could do to help, or even just to say, how do I say, help me? Where do I go?
Yeah. Agree. And have you found the way to say, help me? I mean, what was your strategy eventually when you realized that you have those symptoms? What was your solution? I don't know if you have one.
Just to say it, like I spoke to you on the vodka party.
Yes, hey, I do.
I'm just.
I remember.
Yeah,
with a little bit of swearing and kind of really expressing, your emotions. I think it was awesome.
A bit more passionate with some vodka, maybe. Yeah, I should have had vodka today. But I think I just thought I just need to say it. I just need to tell people that I've been having a difficult time. These people are my friends. I just need to say, help, hi guys, it's been difficult for me. And as you know, once you open the door to that conversation, other people will admit that it is difficult for them as well, but without opening the door, sometimes it just all goes suffering in silence.
True. It's not common. It's not common to discuss kind of problematic zones because people, maybe it's a stereotype, people think that, okay, let's focus on the good things and let's discuss, good stuff. And maybe they subconsciously, they believe that that's how they can support each other, like a focusing on a good stuff, which is, I believe, I agree with you. I believe one thing should not exclude another.
No.
Because by not addressing, I believe we are kind of accumulating some, some stuff inside, and energy is not flowing, and you're just on some kind of vicious circle, and there is no way, to share it, because the sharing and communicating, it's one of the way how energy starts to flow. It could be almost like a kind of therapy, like a self therapy. By talking and discussing, it's already supposed to help already. So what's your observation after you were able to talk? Is there any shift? How the whole situation is developing?
Well, I feel lighter. I feel good that people know. I feel happy to have actually said, hi, I'm not feeling great. I haven't been like phoning everybody to tell them, for example.
Yeah, of course. Of course, that would be extreme
I'm
version.
not scared to bring it up, and that's definitely helped. I think you're right. There is this community that you need to kind of helps, feeling that you're part of something, that it's not your own personal burden or journey. And I think that feeling like, I don't know, I feel it's empowering to say, I'm going to break the stigma. I don't want to care if it looks bad on me, just, because I think people have a stigma like, oh, it's going to look negative on me if I, say I'm depressed or have mental health issues or whatever. So I think that's just, and I don't know, I guess as I am a sociable person who's not scared to talk about other things, it feels good to try and, I don't know, open a dialogue about it. I don't know what I can do to help on a bigger level, maybe, of, trying to break down the stigma. But I definitely think the communication has been very helpful for my personal experience.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And breaking the stigma, well, I think it's already helps when you know that you are not the only one. You are not some kind of, weird person who the only one who has the issue. And when people are open up and start sharing, I think it helps a lot to understand that it's not me actually. It's actually circumstances, and they influence practically everyone. I mean, personally, maybe I didn't have kind of maybe the signs of depression, but I had physical symptoms, and I had some kind of vertigo. I was like a dizzy, and my bed was swinging, when I lie on it. And yeah, there are some weird things going on, and I don't think we need to hide it. It is what it is. And it would be actually nice if people learn how to be open about those things and find the way to discuss it. And in terms of your, yeah, please. Mhm.
Oh, I was just going to say, because earlier you were mentioning like the vicious cycle. And I think that that would also be like a real part of the depression for me, my own symptoms, and acknowledging that I'm depressed and not stressed so much now, maybe, is the vicious cycle of, like, for example, knowing, oh, I should do yoga because I know it's going to help me, but I just can't face doing anything right now. And then you beat yourself up about not doing the thing that
Yeah,
would make you feel better. And then you feel like
classical.
self sabotaging. And there's this horrible circle that kind of goes on, which is just, yeah, it's like a vicious cycle, and you can't get out of it. I think this is
Yeah.
quite a hard thing to break. So,
That's true. That's true. And especially for people who are, well, demanding, maybe not perfectionists, but they used to, when you do have energy, you do those things with ease.
yeah.
And when you suddenly don't, yeah, it's so easy to judge, to make a statement like, why don't you just, what is, it's like that kind of demanding, impatient, judgmental statement from yourself. Yeah, that's a very harsh thing. It's the beginning of circle. And
And
to be honest, yeah, the point is that you never say such a thing maybe to your friends, but to yourself somehow, we do that with ease. And that's a beginning of the really bad cycle.
mhm,
True.
yeah.
So have you found the way to become a little bit more patient with yourself, or I would say more gentle, less demanding? Have you found the way?
I think one thing is, with the stressful factors of life is, there's a whole cycle of the lockdown, let's say, the effects of lockdown on these issues. And there's a whole cycle, and one of them is like you just need to find a rhythm, and it doesn't happen straight away, with the
Yeah.
schooling, with your life, with having time to yourself. It just is taking until now, like 2 months, to find like some kind of rhythm that feels a bit more comfortable.
Hmm.
All of this uncertainty and what's going to happen about this and that, it's there, but it's more of a like accepted stage now. I've been seeing a therapist, which has been very good, once a week, to just explore and
Nice.
cry or whatever needs to happen, which is an
Nice.
emotional outlet. And I have also been reading. I've been reading a very good book by this guy called Johan Hari, which is called Lost Connections. It's about different causes of depression,
Nice.
to do with culture, to do with humanity, to do with people needing to be in touch with nature. And it's a very holistic, open-minded, really interesting. So, I think all of those things, talking to people, are actually helping and healing in a way. So I'm feeling in a better place, actually. I'm still up and down, but I think
Of
that
course.
things are kind of more feeling a bit more level for the last
Hmm.
week or so, say. So yeah, I'm just trying like different things.
Well, when you have some kind of momentum, for example, even that momentum going down or like a spiral down thing, it's gonna take it time to, I would say, to build some healthy foundation. And in order to build that, you need to have some micro, tiny, shifts for better. I mean, I heard from, the like specialists in the depression, they say you need to find the way to do tiny, small thing, not too many, not too demanding, not to expect, dramatic changes, but to be able to find your ground by creating some tiny habits or rituals or something really small, which nourishing yourself and kind of caring about yourself, because that will start bringing a little bit of energy, and that thing is, that have a cumulative effect. So one thing will, it's like the same spiral but going, up, the virtuous one.
That
And
sounds good. Yeah, that totally makes sense, and it feels like a mountain that you have to climb,
yeah,
but it's true. You have to do it one step at a time, and you just hold on to one nugget of good information that
yeah,
you can read in a book or something, and
yeah,
then
exactly.
consciously try and make connections with the people around you or whatever it is. And then these things, I agree with you exactly. Then you need to take these little steps.
Have you thought about some, I know, micro small, habit? I'm not talking about yoga exercises, which would make sense, of course, but if it's not going kind of with ease, I'm
Yeah.
talking about some micro simple habit, which easy to do, but it you feel like it's nourishing. It's some kind of self-care type of habit. Have you thought about one of those, or do you have one?
No, I don't. And I think that that would be a really good idea, would have a very tiny thing. And that's the thing. I think that you've really hit on something there, because we're too programmed, let's say, to then think, oh, I need to do at least half an hour of yoga every day.
Yes,
Otherwise, it
global.
doesn't count,
Yeah.
and that is maybe a bit too much for the moment. And I
Yeah.
do sometimes do yoga, and sometimes I go for a bike ride at night if I'm feeling in the mood, but it's very inconsistent.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think I'm going to look for a tiny thing that might take 2 minutes. And I don't know what it's going to be, but, sometimes in the difficult time, just getting out of bed was difficult enough, and putting on
I can
clothes.
imagine.
I'm sure a lot of
So,
people spent this lockdown in pajamas for months,
yeah.
not necessarily wanting to. I know some people love being in pajamas, but for me, getting dressed like properly as if I was going out had to make a difference to my day, for example.
Yeah. No,
So
everyone is different. But recently I talked do you remember Jim? I mean, a friend of mine, he actually came from London. He came here and we met in a Grand Via kind of apartment once. And it was some kind of party outside
yes, I think so.
in
Yeah.
that terrace. Yeah, I talked with him recently and he had some hard times, really several months. And especially now in lockdown, he had really hard times. And he mentioned that his I would say positive habit, which helped him to get out of that state, was he was creating some kind of hot drink, some kind of punch, I don't know, some very ginger drink, which takes him 2 minutes to do. But he started from there, like I can imagine that time to time to have a really good cup of tea, which you just sit down and enjoy. I mean, it's not super demanding. It's not 1 hour of yoga. It's a little bit easier to do. But if you pay attention and if you treat it as my time, it's for me, and maybe it will start kind of giving those drops of energy to your energy pool.
Yeah, I
And
think it's a good
yeah.
idea. It sounds like a good idea, because I think that's the thing. We have a tendency to try and bite off big chunks. And I think we just need to, especially me, I'm a person who does things in big chunks. I've got
Yeah, I know.
energy, I go for things in a big way. I'm not like a gentle, cautious person. So I think especially for me, it's quite hard to think on those micro terms. But I think that's really good advice. And I'm going to think about my micro movements. Micro,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I come across several years ago, I come across the book. It's called The Kaizen Way.
Uh-huh.
And it was actually, the Kaizen theory actually was developed in manufacturing. I mean, it's like the way of permanent, but tiny, 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 small improvements, which leads to, you know, huge results. But the idea was not aim for anything dramatic. And for example, when you apply the Kaizen way to the fitness, they say, yeah, you cannot run, you could do fitness, you cannot do fitness exercises. In this case, just go to fitness center and stay there for 5 minutes near to some running machines. I mean, and that's it. It's already good enough, you know. So no, it's incredible. Yeah, how people could. And then after a while, when you have habit of going to fitness for 5 minutes, you might feel like, if I'm here anyway, why not to, you know, do something. So
that totally makes sense. Like it
yeah,
really makes sense. And then you have strong foundations too. But yeah, I agree. And I think there's just a natural tendency for people to want to just take on.
having
And
huge
also,
chunks.
like, if you have like high standards for yourself, you want to be able to do everything really well and now. And it's, you know, that kind of mental beating up of yourself that you do. I agree. Micro habits. That's the way forward.
Yeah, incremental changes. You know, I remember when I was in my NLP courses, and my teacher, Ian McDermott, he was, you know, repeating that phrase many, many times. Do not underestimate the power of incremental changes.
Okay.
And that's kind of stuck in my mind because, well, incremental, almost like, oh, it's easy. That's easy. I mean, and if you have, you know, several times per day, that kind of, you know, micro things, well, after a while, yeah, it will start to accumulate, and you maybe already have enough energy to do something bigger. But, you know, it's not the point. The point is to do small things.
Yeah, and not to feel like it's such a challenge, you know. I think that's the difficult thing, is feeling like, oh, it's such a challenge, I can't face it. But a small thing, you can face it.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Niki. I'm really pleased that you agreed to talk with me.
Sure.
And if you would say, if in order to wrap up our conversation, if you would say something for people who, you know, watching right now, and maybe they do have some issues, like what would you advise?
I would say, if you haven't shared it with someone, don't suffer in silence. Definitely communication, I think, is a really good step. And then I think small habits would be a really good thing to do.
Yeah, that's what we came up now during our conversation. That's a strategy. At least nothing to lose, you know. Why not to try? We are not kind of saying that that's the only solution, but, you know, it could be one of them. For sure.
No, I like it, because it's really resonating with me as, I'm always trying to take on too much, you know. It's like, just try and do a little thing for a change. So thank you for that advice.
Thank you very much, Niki. Have a nice weekend. I hope I can see you in some other talks. Yeah, my regards to your family.
And you too. Speak to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.